Hello, 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 my beautiful Empresses. Welcome back to Embody Your Empress. I'm your host, Sarah King, and we have yet another fantastic, amazing guest for you today. I am so excited beyond words for this conversation. This is a woman who motivates me, who inspires me, and who is pushing me to be a better person and showing up better for you guys. So you're going to get so much out of this conversation. I can 100% guarantee that. Welcome to this podcast where this is what it's all about: inspiring you, educating you, and pushing your perspective to take in the world around us. So let's introduce our amazing guest, Sheila Langan. Welcome, Sheila.
Thank you, beautiful lady. I'm really excited to do this. I think we've got juicy topics to cover today. And I love everything from witches to feminism to, what's holding women back and just, all of it. Capitalism. And yes, I love all the topics you're throwing out.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I had so much fun putting together these questions for you because from the moment we met, I just knew. I said, this woman, she's my kind of woman. And we were at a workshop and I knew I had to sit beside you because I'm like, yeah, totally vibing with this chick. I also love that you are the queen maker, which goes along so well with the empresses we have here listening in today, and that you are all for women showing up bigger, taking up space, making more money, and doing it in a way that's truly authentic. And just like makes me, gives me a full body to say that, because this is where we are in our society, I feel. And I'm going to go straight in there now, is
Yeah.
that for so long, most women have held themselves back. We have put ourselves in these boxes. And especially women in my age group, where we go, oh, okay, we're trying to raise a family. I'm just going to have to work a job to top up the family income to support ourselves. Or in my case, being a single mum, like, you need to create the income, but you also need to be the mum, and you've got so many things. And to think that, no, I actually want to make really good, proper money, it can, seem selfish. And I love that you are just like, no, this is okay. This is what we're here for. You be you. We're going to get rid of those money blocks. And most of us don't even know that they're really there. We don't have that self-awareness, or if we do, we're like, shit, how do we overcome? So tell us more about what you do.
All right. And I love all the things that you've got in there. So what I'll start really simply with this. I don't think we've put ourselves into a box. It's more that, and this is generations and generations of it, is that our power has been veiled from us. So it's hidden from us. We don't know it's there. And so we've gone about the world um, really in the way we've been shown, which is like men. So we work the same hours that men work, even though it absolutely screws with female hormone cycles, and our wombs are, effed up from behaving in these ways. And really, I mean, one of the conversations you and I were itching to have is this idea of witches. And I'm going to go there straight away and say, we're all witches. Everyone on the planet is, and my definition of that is, and you and I've talked about this behind the scenes, it's not potions and spells. It's we are all connected to our ancestors, to the invisible realms. We all have guides. We all have an eternal soul, and we've come into this life, and all of that has been shut down, and we've been separated from it. And so there's this veil over and it's even the source of our life force. So women are more fatigued than they've ever been, and not understanding why. They're looking around going, I've ticked the boxes, I've got a pretty good looking life, I've ticked the boxes, but I'm tired. And I look at all of this and it all comes back to, because we're cut off from our power. And you and I are going to explore that over the next hour, because there's layers and layers to this conversation. But we're carrying in things, not just, it didn't just start when we came out of the womb. You look back at women's lives, you look back at your mother's life, you look back at your grandmother's life, keep going back, and you look at what she was allowed to have in her name, what she was allowed to earn, whether she was allowed to drive a car or not, whether she, all the things she was allowed to do. And you go, we've carried in, even speaking back to her husband, or grabbing a microphone and speaking out publicly about, I'm not happy with this, that, or the other. So many ways that we're carrying our grandmother's fears of speaking up, of behaving differently. And so you asked there, what do I do? And I dramatically call it queen maker, but really what I'm doing is stripping away the shit that's getting in the way of you being all of you. You're already really powerful. You have ancestors lined up behind you. Like, I love, Oprah has always spoken about this. People used to ask her, what's it like being the only Black woman walking into a room and negotiating these things, these rooms full of white men. And she said she would always answer that question with, I never walked into those rooms alone. I walked in with thousands of my ancestors with me. And that's, all of us have access to that, but it's been hidden from us. And so women like you and I are coming in and speaking out and showing women how we've tapped into that, and opening that up for others as well. So really, and the money part, will go down that hole as well, that rabbit hole. But that's just a piece of it. When your life force is pumping and you're tapped into all of your power, it's just a natural byproduct that life opens up, the opportunities open up. And when women have, we've got so many examples of this, when women are well resourced, and I mean bodily, healthy and full of energy, when they have, money, resources like that, when they have support crews, so they're not carrying the whole bloody world on their shoulders at home and at work. And when they are wildly resourced, women do, and I was looking at statistics recently, we do 75% of the unpaid care in the world today. And I would imagine the number's bigger than that. I've watched it as my mom was passing, I've watched in the hospital, and outside of that, who was coming in, spending time with these women on their deathbeds. It was all the female relatives. And you look at who bears the burden of raising children as well, unpaid, and it's still women, and bearing the burden at home of doing all the things at home. So I look and go, when we're wildly resourced and we have money, we lift each other up, and we really lift our communities up. We look at what needs doing in our communities, and we make those things happen. So yeah, to more money in the hands of women.
Absolutely. And look, to be honest, Sheila, and I think we've talked about this before, like repressed women, like taking away their money, taking away choices, it keeps us controllable,
Yeah,
which is what the bigger picture wants, right? So when we take
absolutely.
back our power and we're unstoppable and we're saying what we think and we're asking for actually what we're worth, and we're not asking, we demand it, right? Everything changes.
It does. It does. And when you're not exhausted as well, you're more likely to. It's all of that, right? The rebellion in us is suppressed when we're tired, when we're distracted by needing to work really hard to pay the bills. And that's a lie too. And I know you and I both are on that page. It's like we've stepped away from, simply only earning money from working for somebody else. And both of us are running our own soul-led businesses because you want uncapped opportunities, so that, yeah, you just can have the freedom in your life for your family. And it's so much bigger than that, because it does reach back out into all the ways that we impact communities, society, the world.
Exactly. You think of the flow on effect, like you as your person, plus your family, plus your extended family, plus the people in your community, plus anyone that you may wish to employ, plus the local businesses around you. And then it just gets bigger and bigger than that. Like it's so much more than our one soul going, yeah, I'm going to pull in this money. It's just like it's the butterfly effect, right?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. I had some questions while you were chatting. For women who get asked the question, who are you? And they find that confronting and they actually don't know who they are, where can they start?
Oh, I love that. So I actually find, and not even, I'm going to expand it and go, the other one that I get often from women who have been really veiled is not only who am I, but what do I want? And they get so lost in when when you have really been in the grind. Okay, you've been in the grind of either a combination of motherhood and the frenzied hustled working to pay bills, like never enough, not in overflow, not in thriving, just consumed full-time work. um what I find is that again, it is very veiled, and what I've seen is I've actually had. I'll give you an example of somebody who, in her 50s, somebody who I worked with in the corporate world turned to me one day and said, my husband, who she loves, her husband, who she absolutely loved spending time with him, has managed both their money so well that they could both retire in the morning. He's already retired and she's still working full time. And this is just one example of this, and curious who, is listening that this resonates with. And he was begging her to retire with him. And she looked at him and she said, I don't know who I'd be if I wasn't doing this job. So I'm not going to retire. And she didn't love it. She liked it. It used her brain, it stimulated her, but she had lost sight of all the other aspects of who she was. And so if I walk away from this, who am I, And I mean, that would be the dream, right? We have enough money for you to come play with me all day, every day. Let's go on holidays and travel the world. And she's gone, no.
And that is so like that's so ingrained in us though,
Oh,
because we meet someone, we go, hi, what's your name? What do you do?
yeah, yeah,
And that's our conversation. So
yeah,
I'm not surprised.
yeah. And even bigger than that, it's the programming that you are what you're producing. You are the value that you bring, that instead of, if you, and for me, and I will come back and answer where do people start with this in a second, but I'll just share the other story where this was really personal for me. So I worked in the corporate world for 25 years roughly, and towards the end of that, I didn't realize I was burnt out, but I got burnt out. Did not know that's what it was. Had just got myself a horse that year and a puppy, and I just felt this longing, this yearning, this absolutely insatiable yearning to go hang out with them, to go sit in the paddock for days at a time and just be with my horse and be with my puppy and be on the land. And so I had enough money in the bank account at the time. I was counting the money that was sitting in the bank account. I never saw it as a number. I saw it as how many months of freedom I had. Isn't that funny?
Ooh, I love that. What a great perspective shift.
Yeah. And
Wow.
so I could see how many months of freedom I had. And I went, okay, I'm going to take that many months off. I'm going to spend my entire savings and I'm going to take that many months off. And I did. And I realized as soon as I started, I spent that first, 4 to 6 weeks just sitting on the land with the horse and the dog. And I realized, oh, I'm exhausted. Like,
Mm.
sitting here now and doing this, I thought what had happened to me was I thought I'd run out of steam for the job. And so I thought I was having to motivate myself to get up in the morning and go into work just because this isn't what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I thought when I take that away, And now I'm doing what I love, which is, being on the land and sitting with these two beautiful creatures. I thought, oh, that my energy will be great. And it wasn't. And that's when I realized I was burnt out, and I went through the whole, medical process of blood tests and all the rest of it. And so it took 1 year. I lay on my couch for 1 year, unable to work, unable to even see friends, because it reached the point where I didn't have the energy for that. Like the more I stopped, the more my body went, you still haven't stopped enough, you still haven't stopped enough. We need you to do nothing. And Sarah, there was something so confronting about in not just knowing that my work colleagues were also all really tired and they were all still working. So there's this sense of, I'm not going to be a good teammate. They would all love to sit on the couch too, but they can't do it. But even in all my relationships, my relationship with my daughter, my relationship with all my friends, who am I when I have nothing to give you? Nothing. Like, who am I and what value am I in the world? So I was confronted that for a whole year, and it was a forced healing. Like, it was a dark night of the soul. We're a character building, lady. You are going to discover that your value has nothing to do with how much you give everybody around you. That's what you've been taught by the patriarchal, capitalist, white supremacist culture that you live in, that wants you working like a robot for the machine. It doesn't care that you are tapped into the divine being that you are, and knowing that you never have to do anything for another human being to be of value. And so, to me, let's come back to the, where do you start? For years, when I first started hearing my divine guidance, which didn't for me start until my 30s. So I'm late to the whole witchy party. All right. I lived in logical left brain world all my life. Started out as an accountant, you know, little A student, all of that.
Oh my gosh, I would never pick you as an accountant. I knew you had a corporate background, but an
Yeah,
accountant?
I know. I know.
Wow.
I know. Years. Um, and so what my guidance in the beginning for years and years and years would come through, and it would be in capital letters, relax. Capital letters, relax. Now that I have done all the immersions, the retreats, the study, the experiences, the listening to my own soul and getting guidance every day, and years of this. So I'm, 15 years into this now. I now understand, and I'm going to, take through more than just relax, because for women who are programmed, which was all of us, programmed that your worth is in be a good girl, you're looking after everybody else, put up and shut up and be grateful for what you've got. Don't be seeking all that wild money, be grateful for what you've got. Money doesn't grow on trees, all these things that are planted in us. But your value was in how you contributed at home and how you looked after your siblings potentially, and what grades you got at school, because everything in our parents and grandparents generations was about respect in the community, how we were seen. Our reputation in the community mattered above everything else. So we come in with that programming, and so for women to sit and relax, and there's another layer to this. This is also layered. We're also now stuck in fight or flight. Let me add that. So the way our society works has us in the gear, stuck in, and it doesn't feel like fight or flight because we've normalized it. So we're
So
stuck.
normal though. And yet when you say to someone, our nervous system is constantly dysregulated, we need to be more conscious of pulling it back. Even like the micro parts that we can. People look at me like I'm a crazy person.
Oh,
And I'm just like,
no.
look around.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think, I think the advent of smartphones, took that up a notch. And it's not boo his smartphones, because I actually run a business. My income comes from this, all day, every day. But so I love them, but it did ratchet that up a notch. I look at my mom's generation, and she would sit and have multiple cups of tea, just sitting in the chair, staring out the window. She was a coffee drinker. It was coffee. And during the day, during her day, she would take multiple breaks. And if you think back to that generation, they all did that. They would take tea breaks, not just meal breaks, but tea breaks during the day. And there was no doom scrolling.
Yeah.
They would just sit and look at the sky, inside or outside, look out a window, sit in a chair, breathe. We're not doing none of that.
We don't have those. And we don't have those micro pauses outside either. Like if you're going to go meet a friend, you sit down and you look at your phone. You're not just sitting there at the table waiting for them to turn up and
Yeah.
taking those little pauses.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
all of this is layered. And so what I find is, even though spirit was telling me relax, I meet, and it's particularly the overachieving women who I draw in a lot of, and I'm guessing you do too, because we were the ultimate good girls, getting the good grades, working hard to get mom and dad's praise. And so we're now the overachievers in our current lives. We're still running a survival pattern. This is how I am loved, when I am the best at my job, when I am the ultimate good girl, not
I need to give
realizing
all of myself. I need to give it all.
all.
Yep.
And we are the women who put us on a couch and say, lie down for, lie down for 10 minutes every day during the day, no phone. Lie outside for 10 minutes and sunbathe, no phone. It literally feels, and truth, right? It feels unsafe. It feels unsafe.
Mm.
And their mind is spinning, going like, I can't get up, do this, do that. You're lazy if you do this, is part of the programming, but it's more than that. It's nervous system. It doesn't feel safe, you
It's so
know?
vulnerable. You are so vulnerable.
Yeah.
The mask
Yeah.
isn't there to hold.
No, this is it. And so what I find is, and I know that you're in the same boat with me with this and the work you do with women, it isn't just, if we sat there and we gave out masculine strategies like tips and tricks, do these three things, it's not going to work when your subconscious and your nervous system is stuck in a different gear and telling you danger, 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 Will Robinson, danger. And that's what is happening. And so for me, with my work with women, I always have to start with, okay, deep breaths. We're going to flick your nervous system out of fight or flight, and we're going to get you into parasympathetic, into rest and digest first, because we can't do anything until your system is going, it's safe to do this. And now you're listening, and now we can dig in and find things. And there's all kinds of patterns that sit in our subconscious. And again, I know you know this very well, because again, it's work you do. Those patterns sit in our subconscious, constantly telling us that the things we want aren't safe. And so I started out as a coach for years, and I was just coaching on the conscious and just being more of an accountability buddy. You'd have somebody come in and say, I'd love to do X, Y, or Z. And then we'd, figure out a plan, and you'd be monitoring progress on the plan. And I just noticed how much self-sabotage was going on, and how people really weren't doing what they were saying they wanted to do. And that's when I discovered the subconscious stuff. And as soon as I immersed in that, what I realized was there's an enormous, actually, it's the crux of it. Your brain is the biggest block to your soul work, to your that whole idea of who am I and what do I want, right? Let's come right back to where this question started. Who am I and what do I want? And you've come in with a soul that wants to express itself and experience big things in this lifetime. And it is your subconscious brain that is going to be, that it has the whole veil down. It's nobody else now. It's us. All the programs are in there. They're running. And that veil has come down, that's gone, anything outside of how I have been living up to now is unsafe. And so it's holding you back. And the whole nervous system then is linked into that. But that's why with everybody now, and I wasn't always as diligent with this, but with everybody now, I do a shit ton of subconscious rewiring before we can. The other half of the work I do, which I adore, is, and then we tap into your soul guides and your ancestors and your soul and your higher self and your future self, and get all the yummy goodness of, well, who am I and where am I going? You know, what do I really want? And all of that starts popping off. But you have to, we're human first, and we're human with generations. And as women, generations and generations of this stuff being, we were burned on fucking pyres over this.
Yeah.
And so, generations and generations of wounding that gets triggered as soon as you even think about exploring anything different than your current life. So, yeah, you and I can get into how you start clearing all that stuff, but it's a journey,
I
shall we say?
I love how you just explain like that witch wound compiles with the mother wound that we are carrying now, the generational trauma that's following through.
Yeah,
I, I think a lot of people miss the point. They are all part of
they are.
one big thing. We all go compartmentalize, call
No,
it something different, put it in this little box, but they're actually all entwined. They are all one.
they are.
And I love how you just simplify that. Like when you are like, we're going to get to this, like we get to it. There's
Yeah,
no like, let's look at this tiny little fraction part or
no,
this tiny little fraction.
no.
That's a beautiful way that you describe it. Um, so many questions from that.
Yes.
To go back to the burnout that you felt from your
Yeah,
career,
yeah,
that for me, that landed, as you were saying, that landed for me, that was the burnout from my marriage. I
yeah,
was married, like I was in the relationship for 16 years.
yeah,
And when that dissolved,
yeah,
I was laying on the couch for a year. I had that moment, first of all, where I'm like, I'm going to push myself into study and I'm going to keep my human brain so active because it was too big to process. And then
yeah,
when I finally let the guards down, everything fell apart for me. Like I was on the couch. I had been so motivated, quote unquote, like a high functioning person up until that point. And as soon as I tapped in and I was just like, okay, I can start to process it, it all just fell apart. I couldn't do anything. And the word lazy, like you said, like that was ingrained into me. That was my story. You're lazy if you do nothing. And here I
yeah,
was. I couldn't get out of bed on weekends where I didn't have my children to look after or I was working. Then that's all I did. I lay in bed for weekends on end and I didn't tell anyone. Like I was so ashamed of that. And it was
yeah,
the only way that my nervous system could actually begin to restore itself. And I
yes,
didn't actually, like, I knew it was to do with that, but until you actually just expressed it, it just landed with how hard, like, how much energy, how much myself went into that relationship to try and keep it afloat, that it literally sucked nearly every part of my soul out. So the burnout is real. So whether it be from a career or a
yeah,
relationship or these other journeys that we take that aren't aligning with our true self,
yeah,
I think we need to give ourselves the compassion that, yeah, it's going to take time and it's going to be confronting and it's going to be really uncomfortable
yeah.
to do what our soul and our body needs to do to realign with each other.
Oh my God, absolutely. And look, my heart breaks that there are other women out there like you that couldn't share that. I mean,
Mm.
I was lucky in my experience. I told everybody. And it's funny because then when I came out of it, I actually had several friends say to me, "Oh my God, Sheila, I didn't realize it was that bad. Why didn't you tell us?" And it's like, I was telling you. But when people see me, I would still look like I look like now because it's invisible. And you would have been the same. They couldn't see anything different. So
Yeah.
when they would speak to me, the occasional time I showed up to anything, you don't look any different.
Yeah.
And so people don't realize how empty, utterly empty of life force you feel. And you're so right. It goes beyond, it goes beyond a marriage or a corporate work. Women are raising families, and you'll find often the male partner doesn't lose themselves in that journey, but the woman does. And again, our conditioning is to do that. The people pleasing, the overachieving, the perfectionism, all those wounds, and their wounds, their survival patterns. You have to do it this way or it's not safe. And so those survival patterns suck us dry. So let's move this then into queens, right? And queendom. Let's go from, okay, so how can we be in these marriages, be in these jobs? There's nothing wrong with being in a corporate job, but be in a corporate job, raise kids, whatever it is, raise animals. I've got plenty of women in my life that have chosen not to have children, but they have four-leggeds instead, whether it's horses, dogs, cats, whatever. But we give of ourselves very heavily. And so I want to speak to that, right? Let's take it into that direction, because I think that's what you will have learned in that experience, and I'll have learned in that experience is, okay, what sucks us dry, I'm going to come back to where we started. What sucks us dry is when we are not allowing our life force, our full spirit to channel through our body. Now, we are going to break this down, right? This isn't about what you did or didn't do. It isn't about how hard you worked or not, because that's not, none of that actually matters. It's when you are doing it in a way that you're choking off your life force, you're swallowing emotions. So if you're happy to share, do you want to share a little bit? Because this is all relative, and I'll do the same with mine. Share a little bit about during that 16-year relationship, did you feel that, and I know the answer to this question. You share as much as little as you like. Did you feel like a queen? Did you feel like you fully spoke up for yourself whenever anything was not okay? Did you feel like when you needed to rest or play or seek pleasure that you could do that? Or was it very outward energy and shovel down anything else? No, I'm going to let you answer.
Yeah. Absolutely. And look, to be honest, like I was floating through the world with no eyes open, no ears open, Sheila. Like I was a different woman.
Yeah.
And I forever was giving away all of my power. Like I didn't
Yeah.
even tune in with myself to be like, what do I want? What do I feel like doing? What will light me up? How do I want to spend my time off? What is going to bring me any pleasure? Like I knew I wanted more in life career wise,
Yeah.
had no idea even where to start. I was just going through the motions of these menial jobs, not to
Yeah.
insult them, like they were the lessons I needed, but I
Yeah.
knew towards the end there was greater things that could be possible, but I was not not going there. I repressed all of my emotions. It was only about 18 months ago that I truly, really felt embodied anger for the first time, where I felt safe enough
Yeah.
to let the fire burn within me. And I'm thankful for the trigger that came on with, because
Yes.
now I can express it and it is part of our human emotion. And
Oh.
repressing it is what got me to that point where I literally had a conversation between my higher self, my soul, and my human within my head,
Yeah.
going, my soul was draining. My higher self was like, you have to change this or it's going to, like, you will end. Because my
Yeah.
soul was
It'll
just
kill
draining
you.
away.
Yeah.
And I went, no, my human was so freaking scared.
Um,
Hung on for dear life, and divine guidance came in and took over and went, we're ending this for you. And the weight was off my shoulder and I cried so many tears. Not that I let anyone see that, but I felt the sadness and the sorrow and the grief and the shame, not for losing someone, but for disowning myself
yeah.
for so long. And I vowed to myself, I'm not going to put myself in that situation again. Like I have learned this is where Sarah is. And I have to remind myself of that at times, because
Yeah.
sometimes the conditioning comes up
Yeah.
and I want to please everyone and I want to be that digestible person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which now, after our session, she's completely gone out the window. But that was me. But I don't get lost in it anymore. Like, I could call myself back and be like, actually, hang on, what is in alignment here? And I learned how to really tune in quite quickly
Yeah.
to my emotions first and foremost, because they tell me, number one, like, if I need to cry, I need to cry, and I don't have to judge myself, and I don't need to go into the stories of it. I just need to release the emotion and then
Yeah.
realign with that intuition. And that was the most powerful thing. So I often get women asking me, what is the end of a relationship like? Will I be able to cope? The questions like that. What is it like co-parenting? And for me, I'm like, you've got to take away all the stories, because if you're asking me that, there is something within you right now that is not aligning, that is draining you of this, this essence that is supposed to be alive and supposed to be flowing. And when
Yeah.
you've got those thought patterns happening in your head, then you're going to come to that conclusion.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, that's enormous. And thank you for sharing all of that. And I go, you look at that and you go, that's again why you and I are doing the work we're doing in the world. So you do this in the arena of relationships, and I do it in the arena of career and money. But the work itself that you and I do is the same work,
Yeah.
because we're overcoming the same, it's all the same stuff. And it actually also, I go, the third category is health. The other place that this shows up, they're the big ones, right?
Yeah,
Career,
absolutely.
money. Yeah, that's the trifecta, love, and in all its shapes and forms, and health. And all of this patterning gets in the way of women's ability to flourish in all three of those areas. So shall we go into what the other side looks like, right? When you're then in your queen, right?
Oh, one more thing before we do
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Does everyone self-sabotage?
Yes.
Yes.
And including me and you, and yes, till the day we die. And I go human,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So yes. And it's the extent of it, the
Mhm.
awareness of it. Like, I love when I sit and have conversations with clients who've worked with me for a while. What I'll get is they actually see it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this thought popped up, and it would take me out of what I know I want to do. So I looked at it and I went, you're not helpful. So we're not listening to you. And so instead, I'm going to do X instead. But yeah, the
Mhm.
conditioning until the day we die is there. So yes, and we can go longer into that if you like, but simple answer.
That's it. It's like the old neighbor popping their head over the fence, right? Going, hey, hey, and you're like, no, I'm not dealing with you today.
Yeah, and look, you know what? All that is, and again, when I was doing soul work longer than I was doing neuroscience, and it wasn't until I paired them both that my soul work really took off, and that's because our brain is just programmed. You know this. Our brain is programmed to keep us safe. And so it's all about survival. It's all about stay the same. It's all about don't expand, don't try the new things, all of that. Don't go on the dating apps. Don't try and, meet new people. Don't.
Comfort
Yeah, don't
zone.
don't
Comfort
open your
zone.
heart. Yes,
Yeah.
don't open your heart. Don't show more with me. Don't make any more money. We all have these little energetic caps on what we think we can earn. Don't look for other opportunities. And our brain will literally delete data so that you don't even see the opportunities, if of anything expensive, until you learn how to um, I call it the opposite of self-sabotage. When you can actually learn to work with your brain, you understand it better, and instead of self-sabotage, you're actually pointing it and shooting it at where you want to go, because your soul is always calling you forward. Your soul is always growth, 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 expansion, and brain is always stop, stay. So until the day we die, that's the tension, that's the dance that we will do. And the women who will become full-blown empresses in this lifetime are the ones that understand that is a dance I will do every day.
Every day, learning, evolving.
Every damn day.
Every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is not. I always say it's not, fairy dust and
Yeah.
unicorn sparkles.
Well, you
Once
do
you,
have a magical wand, so it does feel like it, Sheila. The work you do is so easy in the moment.
what you and I both know, and you can speak to this in the experience you had. The beautiful thing is when you do, because I do shadow work and light work. And when you combine shadow work and light work, when you do that, heal the wounds and, feel the feelings and all of that stuff, feel the feelings that we've been afraid to feel, let them out. And you do the light work, you start letting your guides in and you start taking their advice, you start listening to them, and you allow, in fact, the divine love to pour in, and you allow all of that magic in. When you have both of those together, you and I both know it is actually easier. And that's why I do this work. Like, I could happily sit and not share this and just potter my way to retirement. I'm close enough, potter my way to retirement and, live happily ever after. And I'd have a lovely life. But my soul wants more. My soul is like, yeah, you didn't just come here to sit in the paddock with the horses, even though you love doing that, but
Just
you
a
did actually.
transfer.
That's fun. But they came in to do this soul work with me, and that's another tangent we can go on. They love when I bring humans into the paddock with them because they are masters at the subconscious and the energy work and the unblocking. I have a wild Brumby. He spent most of his life, he was born in the wild, spent most of his life in the wild. He's only been domesticated for the last handful of years. And whenever people come into the paddock with him, he instantly feels their energy, feels the block, and he'll let you know. Your sacral is, and it's not in those words, but if you're sensitive to energy, you'll feel it. It's like your sacral's blocked. And if you stand with him long enough, he'll help you get it flowing again. They're amazing. And it's why I feel like I have better than therapists to help me in the work I do. But the reason you and I are doing the work we're doing is when you tap in and you do the shadow work and then you unblock the light work, growth is easier. And I'd love if you're happy to speak to a little bit after we had our session together, just how, and I'm happy to speak to my experience of this too, but I'd love to hear yours. Because I know a little bit because we've been pinging back and forth. But if you do the before and after, before, sharing content and writing stuff and all of that, and then the after of it, when you do the work, it, does it feel easier?
Oh my gosh, so much easier. And like I went into our session knowing that I was holding myself back,
Yeah.
sharing who I was. I knew I still had, challenges with feeling lovable, which contributed to that, and challenges of being worthy of, receiving all the beautiful things out there in life. And this
Yeah.
has been my focus for this year. Like, this is what has risen up, and I have been going head first, like literally not even like the baby steps. This has been the work for me. So going into our session, I was open to just exploring what happened, what came up, without putting the expectation on it, because I always think that it brings the best results.
Yeah.
And definitely, like when we got into it, like I the things that had been holding me back, I'm now so detached to the whole thought of it. I was actually reflecting on it the other day. Something came up and a situation, and I was just like, wow, a couple of weeks ago, that would have had me in a tailspin. I would have held myself back. I would have been thinking about it nonstop. And it came up, and in that moment, I went, what's the worst that's going to happen? Sheila said, "It doesn't matter." No, not that, but it does. It was just like, oh, what's the worst that could happen? So I
Yeah.
went and continued anyway on my journey, and I am just so much more expressive. Sarah is being seen.
Yeah.
I'm not filtering what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like I wrote a post for Instagram yesterday, and look, I did have a moment after I hit the go button where I went, "Oh, is that a bit too much?" And then I went,
They're
"No,
the best
this is
ones.
what I had to say." And I have got so many DMs about, "Thank you for sharing. That hits with me. That's exactly what I was thinking. I couldn't put into words." So many women like really resonated with that, and that is my confirmation that yes, okay, here I am on the right track. I need to do this, and it is so much easier after our session because I got rid of the bullshit that was holding me back.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, look, Sarah, I love that. And I mean, I knew that. I'm, led you down that path so that you'd share that because I can see it. I can see it coming out of you and I love it. And I'm also happy. This isn't just a pitch Sheila's work session. It's pitch this work session. Like that's what you and I are doing. So now I will share what some of the biggest blocks are that I've had to overcome to be where I am even in my business too, because I go, the more we share this stuff, the more women then aren't going to trip over the same stuff we did or aren't going to trip over it as long as we did, right? They'll go, oh, Sheila and Sarah talked about that. Okay, I'm going to go sort this out. So I'm not going to spend months spinning wheels. So for me, and again, I love this work for this reason. For me, and it was while I was studying the neuroscience stuff. So I was guided to that. I mean, that's a bit of a crazy story too. And I've got lots of these. So I was guided. I'd been doing work as a coach for years at that point. And, I was having great sessions. I'm a very intuitive coach anyway. I know, how to work with people and guided to what I need to say and, what they need to clear. But I didn't have the subconscious tools. So, on this particular, it would have been around the 1st of January, about 5 years ago. It's funny, it was a magical year for me. So that was the year of COVID, 2020. I got my first horse. I got the puppy I have now, who I adore. And I found the subconscious course. That was an remarkable, remarkable year. And I found this woman on the internet. Within a week of finding her, I dropped 5 grand. I had never heard of her before in my life. I've dropped 5 grand with her and went, oh, I can I can intuitively tell from what you post, you are the real deal. You have that spark of extraordinary that I want to live my life. You feel very brave. You feel very inspired. I always seek soulful women, not just, I don't want bro extraordinary. I don't want, and I'm not dissing Tony Robbins because he does extraordinary work, but I don't just want that massive action, burn the boats. Because to me, after having the burnout experience, and for a lot of women, success is equated to us burning out. We are exhausted and our cycles are different to men. So, not what I was seeking. Found this woman.
Not that like a masculine, like pushing everything.
Yeah, the hustle, the heart. And I'll do a quick aside on that. Male hormone cycles every 24 hours. The current corporate work day is perfectly matched to a male hormone cycle. It is horrific for women. It is destructive for women. We have infertility and all kinds of womb growth. So fibroids, endo, PCOS, you name it, right? All the abnormal growths in wombs. And I go, our wombs are effed from the way we are being in the world, not just corporate work, but just the way we are showing up in the world, because we're not living true to how the female is meant to live. We're just showing up in a man's world, living like men, and we've swallowed the emotions, and we're doing that 5-day week. And I'm going to do another aside, and then we're going to come back to the neuroscience part. But the other aside that I go that sticks for me is when you see children, and if you think about our whole school system has come, if you look at the origins of all of this is the British Empire. So rich white men, patriarchy, capitalism, colonialism, white supremacy,
All the fun stuff.
all of it, right? All of it. So our school system was birthed from that, and it still is from that. And when you watch, I've watched this with so many children. I watched it with my own daughter, but I see it still. I have friends with young kids in primary school. When you see that by the end of term, every child, the ones with the most life force on this planet, the most energy of everybody, no adult responsibilities, are exhausted and cranky by the end of every school term, you know there's something wrong. You
Mm-hmm.
know there's something wrong. And I point that out because I go, and then we take the same 5 day a week, all day, every day, pressure, and we continue to do it for decades in our adult life and tell ourselves, I'm just going to get enough money in the bank and then I'll retire early. And people are their health is so screwed up by then. People are dead, cancer, womb
Yeah.
stuff, you name it, autoimmune on the rise, all of it, right? And I'm not saying oversimplistically that it's all to do with that, but it has a major, major factor in it. Our cortisol levels, all of this, thyroids, you name it. So us reclaiming Empress and Queen and witchhood is also a reclamation of health. So an aside there, but I think an important aside. So coming back to, I found at the beginning of 2020, I found this woman that was teaching the subconscious stuff. And, I'm sharing this story because I want to speak to the wounds I uncovered. And during that, signed up for a course. It was an 8-month course. She teaches it so brilliantly. Everybody else locks you in a conference room for 2 weeks and then sends you home with a binder. This woman went, we're going to immerse, we're going to have training pods. You're going to practice all these tools on each other every fortnight. We're going to have long Q&A sessions, very frequently. So we really immersed for 8 months. And I found it so foreign to do this, speaking to your subconscious and finding all of this stuff. I found it so foreign, but so powerful. Actually redid her course all again the next year. I took the whole 8 months again.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. Because it was like, oh my friggin' God, this is life changing, but I don't feel like I've fully grasped the concepts. Like, this is so, and it is foreign. Speaking to the subconscious is different to everything we've ever learned. And again, should be taught in school. So, I want different school cycles and
Yes. Different. I mean, yes, I fully agree with all of
all of
this.
this,
Because why don't we even talk about real emotions in the
all of
class?
that.
Like,
And all and that's too, like, we'll come back to that one because I think that's incredibly powerful in the work you do, the work I do, the not feeling. So yeah, let's mark that one down. So feeling and being in touch with our bodies. And again, I'll come back to, because we were programmed in that patriarchal, capitalist, Anglo-Saxon, white supremacist, all of that school. You learn to ignore your body.
yes.
I do not drink, eat, go to the toilet, move until I am told. I sit in a chair and I'm rewarded for being quiet and being still and working,
Yeah.
right? 13 years of that, I am
Yeah.
rewarded for ignoring every whisper my body makes and then every scream my body makes,
Yep.
because it eventually starts screaming. So we've been conditioned, and then we just carry that in and think, why am I self-abandoning? Why am I, eating what I shouldn't eat? Or why am I not exercising when I know I should? And it's like, because you've had 13 years of conditioning and now you're in a subconscious loop that thinks that's safe. That's why you unravel those loops and all of a sudden you're living healthier. But I'm going to come back and I'll pick two of the biggest wounds that I healed that were in the way of me starting a business, leaving corporate and running an online business, right? Because again, there'll be women watching this, and it's the same thing that will get in the way of relationship, how you show up in
Absolutely.
relationship, right?
Absolutely. And like you said before, they are literally all entwined. And it's
Oh,
not just one area. Because if
oh,
you're doing well in love,
it is.
everywhere else is thriving. You're doing great in business or at work. Your health is amazing. If you're having a shit time in love, everything else is effed as well. Like, and all around.
It is. And the reason, to me, what's at the crux of that is when we are in our Empress slash Queen, we are honoring our boundaries. We are looking after ourselves. We are resting when we need to. We are playing when we feel like it. You know, we seek out pleasure in life. We are speaking up when we need to, not blocking this throat chakra. We're feeling the feelings, like all of it. And so when you are in that power, you're allowing the divine guidance to pour through you, the creativity, you're open to the opportunities in the world. You're more attractive and magnetic in business. You're more attractive and magnetic in relationship. You're more fun to be around. Um, really, you'll attract differently. But even when you're with the same person, I've watched when women have done work with me, and they've been in relationship, and even with an ex. And when the woman has done work with me, and it can be in a single session, the ex has shown up differently. The ex has
Mm.
shown up meeting her. What do you really want? Never having asked that question before. What do you really want? Let me help you,
Yeah.
have that when we are in that power. And that's why all those things are better. Our health is better, our money and career are better, our love is better. We're the work that needs to happen. And I do keep mentioning the whole, patriarchal stuff. The key to us ending, and again, it's a reason why you and I do this work. The key to us ending all the destruction that we're seeing in the world, all of the lack of ethics in every aspect of every supply chain. Every time you spend money, you're worried about who got screwed in that, what human got screwed in that transaction, what piece of land got polluted. Like, the supply chains that we're buying from, it's so rare to find one that from A to Z it's clean. But that's what we want. And this is why I want more women running businesses, because
Mm.
that's what we want. And that's we're starting to build. You're seeing it. And men building those
Yes.
too. There are definitely examples. But I
And
go,
not just currently, like
yeah,
generationally as well. Like that is the culture that came and conquered different nations. We have that within our bloodstream. That's in our DNA. And as like we have spoken before, like as women making money or going into business, like for me, that came up as like being a massive thing. Am I going to be that
out of
person?
integrity.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, exactly, is the only way. And I love that, because you messaged me after that cleared for
Yeah.
you. And you said it was this ingrained that the only way to make big money is to screw others over, because that's all we've seen. Yeah.
The example we have had through history
Yeah.
currently, like,
Yeah.
and like you're saying, equality is not there. Equality is not in
No,
our world, in society at the moment. And if you believe it is, then you've got the
no,
biggest blinders on and you've gone down. You are the perfect person for these massive corporations and these governments to be like playing with. But equality is not there, whether it be for women, whether it be for any other culture that is not that privileged white male out there. And so much needs to change, but that comes from us, right? It comes from
I
us doing the
agree.
work first.
I agree. And so that's for me. I think I completely agree. So it starts with us. And what I will say is, and I want to say this really, really big, bold letters, equality itself is a distraction, because you and I both know, and I know you know this, because we don't want equality in this world with these systems.
Yeah.
We actually want all those supply chains changed, the way governments run, the way schools are run, the way prisons are run, the way
Mhm.
healthcare is run, all of it. If women were really in their power and we reimagined how all of that could be done, it wouldn't be the way it is today. And the corporations even wouldn't be running the way they are today. We don't want equality. And I just see, I have some friends who are really senior in the corporate world. And at the very, very top, they're just going, I don't want that. I don't want that. It's not that there's a glass ceiling. It's not that I can't have it. It's like that it's just so out of integrity the way I want to be in the world. I don't want that. And that's why we're not in
Mhm.
all of those positions. And it's more than women, it's more than it goes, this is along the lines of race and gender and all kinds of other, intersectionality. And we don't want the world the rich white men, able-bodied straight men built,
Mm.
you know?
Absolutely. Bring it
And
to
I'm
the
not,
ground. Let it
yeah,
burn.
yeah, and I'm not boo-hissing because I actually have some really, really incredible men in my life, like really loving beings. I'm not boo-hissing men in any of this, but I am boo-hissing the world we live in. And I go, it's not the world. I don't want to be equal in this world. We are reimagining it. So yes, and I 700% agree with you. We have to do the unraveling inside. So the liberation of all is first the liberation internally, and it is unraveling. It's unraveling the ancient wounds that are still playing out in our daily life. So if I do my one example, you can tell me if you want to continue. But for me, when I was doing that subconscious course and I was starting, the first time I started to go, okay, what's underneath all of this? At that point, I'd been coaching for years. I hadn't been showing up online. I think all up in my whole life, I had maybe posted 3 times ever. And I knew I wanted to run an online business and be on social media and show up. And I couldn't tell you why. And this is the other thing that I know you'll relate to, because you've done plenty of this work too. I think it's really important that women understand you will never see, when it's a subconscious fear, you'll never see what it really is. Your brain doesn't show you what you're really afraid of. Your brain just distracts you with something it knows it can distract you with. So it won't tell you, in my case, it didn't tell me that in past lives, I have been a priestess type character that is, out there preaching and bringing people back to their divinity and bringing people back to their connection with their power and the other realms and their ancestors and their guides and their full life force and their full, open throat, expressing it all, open heart, feeling it all, and grounded so that they're resourced on this planet. And I was murdered for that in many lifetimes. And I've had when I did this work, I was shown the visions of that. So I didn't know that. Sheila didn't know that. I didn't know that if I wanted to go and write a post and show up on social media, that what was terrifying me was that I would be killed for it, that I have been killed for publicly speaking about this stuff. So that's classic priestess wound, witch wound, all of those, right? And many women have it, even ancestrally, because some of the witches had their children. And so, some of us have actually descended from women who were burned. And I had a client last week who sat with me and we were clearing. She was stuck. She wanted to launch a spiritual business. She is a phenomenal shaman, channeler in her own right. Phenomenal. I've never had a session like it, in fact. It was incredible what came through her. But she was stuck, and she was stuck making money in a very masculine way. And she knew she wanted to go in this direction, but she was going, I just feel resistance. I don't know what it is. And in the pre-work, I asked her, what's the worst thing that could happen if you did it and if it was successful? And all she wrote, and I think this is so important because it's all your brain shows you, I'm afraid my family will laugh at me.
Mm.
That's all she wrote. That sounds so tiny and inconsequential and little. And I read her pre-work and I went, oh, this is classic witch wound, let's go in and see what we find. But I just went, oh, classic,
Yeah.
and you don't come in this gifted in this lifetime unless you've had unless you've had experiences in past lives too. She's an older soul that's done this before. And so again, you've been persecuted for this. We went in and that's exactly where she found herself. She was in the fire. She was
Right.
burning. And in this lifetime, had the pain and the fear of that, but it was just saying your family will mock you. You'll get kicked out of the tribe if you do
Yeah.
this. Your family will reject you. That's all she was getting in this lifetime. She wasn't being told you have witch wound. So it's not going to come up and mine didn't come up. I just couldn't post online. I didn't feel safe. There was this big fear. I couldn't tell you what I was afraid would happen, but I just felt this really big fear. And when I did the subconscious work, and then I had the, okay, I've been murdered for this. That's what the fear
Mm.
is. So
Yeah.
subconscious is
Oh,
afraid. And you then clear that, and I'm now online every single day. I am happy to show up on video. I'm happy to use my voice. I am happy to have my picture plastered. I'm happy to write my words. I'm happy to speak about divinity and witches and soul and dead, talking to dead people. And there's nothing I'm not afraid to say now. And I wouldn't have the business I have if I had not uncovered and released that. So I just, there's so many examples, but I think for you and I, we both in the work we do, women will come in and they actually won't know what it is that's blocking them. All they know is, I'm not able to get out of where I am, but I can't see why. So come back to who are you and what do you want? They might even not be able to answer that question, but coming into you or I, you can get unstuck. We can go really deep and find out what's, got you stuck. Open your channel. So clear the shadow, open your channel to the light. Then you'll start to feel and explore who I am and what I want.
yes. And getting back to what we were going to talk about 40 minutes ago, what is that side of us? Like, what are we going to experience when we have done that? What are our highlights? The way that we can truly, like, we're in the work, we do the work, and then, like, what do we see on that other side?
Okay, I love that. Well, so if I'm going to throw this one back at you, because I know I have talked a lot. I love the
Hey,
balance.
I'm the host here.
What I love about this is because both of us are going to hit it for both, for people who are looking for the relationship context, and then people that are looking at it for the career money context. So if you're happy, I'll let you do the relationship context one, and then I'll do the career money one. When you are on the other side, talk us through when you do clear so I'm shoveling down emotions. I'm people pleasing left, right, and center, and not actually looking after myself or figuring out what I want. Again, that's very common in relationship. And anybody that's raised kids and been in a long-term relationship will often find they're heavily in that. So then do you want to share the example of, okay, so what is it like the other side of that when you do this shadow and light work?
I love the other side. It's like being wrapped in such a warm hug, but not from external. Like, it's all internal.
Yeah.
You find that courage when you're going through the work, because some people are so afraid. The fear comes up of just doing the work, of how will I change afterwards, that you're bringing courage in from the beginning when you start. So when you're coming out of the big integration process, you are truly, like, just embodying, like, your pure essence, what your soul is actually here for. So in relationship, you completely strip back the people pleasing, the needing to overgive, all the things that you have been doing. So, you've got more energy. You've just got more energy for you.
Yeah.
You stop attracting in the absolute bullshit, because there's always a type, and you go, why do I always end up dating the same type and the same situations keep coming in? You stop attracting that, because you've actually drawn that line in the sand. Like, to be really basic, you've drawn the line and you've gone, this is my value now, these are my personal values, and you're only going to draw in the people that align with your personal values. Otherwise, you're going to realize you're not going to waste the time entertaining it. So you that in relationship wise. So then you're going to have deeper, more meaningful connections, whether they evolve into anything. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter,
Yeah.
because the whole point of relationship is that mirror back to yourself.
Yeah.
And once you've done the first sort of inner work and you realize that, the I don't want to say disasters, but those big epic moments that could be fall apart,
Yeah.
on my knees moments, they don't matter so much because you actually go, okay, well, this is the lesson here.
Yeah.
And you can actually have that external talk between your higher self, your soul, and your human to go, oh, okay, yeah, we did have that experience again because I needed to. And that self compassion is just so tasty. Like, okay, yeah, you don't beat yourself up, you don't go into that shame spiral anymore. So many good things. And that's just for like focusing on the relationship because, like we said before, when you're in your power and when you're in your essence and you are feeling lighter, more energetic, showing up more, it transmutes into every area of your life.
It does. It does. And I love that. So as I'm listening, I was scribbling everything, each of your points, because I am curious about the parallels, right? And I love what you've touched on because, and I'll go back through them, each one also spot on. It appears. So I'll do the examples, right? First thing you said is you feel more energy. So that 700%, and there's science behind that. So you're, to me, this is just basic quantum physics, but it's also spiritual. You're allowing more life force through your body. That's where that energy comes from. There's biological energy too, but we all know you could sit there and not change what you've eaten or how you move. But if you have a conversation with somebody that opens you up and you are letting this stuff flow, you feel so sparked and alive. It's like, all right, that's when you're allowing your spirit to flow through you. And the more we unblock the subconscious stuff, the more we allow ourselves, stuck emotion is one of the biggest blockers. So that
Mhm.
bit that you spoke about before, I allow myself to feel.
Mhm.
Um, that is one of the biggest steps. If we go back to, how can women tap into this more? Beginning to feel, and you've got to find ways to do that safely depending on what you've buried. This could be anywhere from getting trauma therapy if that's what's needed, depending on the extent of the circumstances that somebody's been in, to just working with somebody who is an experienced healer. And
It's actually one of my favorite questions when I'm meeting someone like in the dating realm is to ask a man, when was the last time you cried? Because it tells me so much about them and where they are on their personal growth journey and if
yeah,
they're open to it.
yeah, brilliant, brilliant.
Mm.
And one I used to say to my kid all the time, because I learned this in my past relationships, was watch how he treats his enemies. Don't judge him based on how he treats you in the first, month of a relationship, because that's the best he'll ever be. Watch how he treats his enemies now. Is he courteous? Is he respectful? You
Mm.
know?
That's
Yeah.
brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. Is he mature? Because this is who you may end up co-parenting with one day. You're going to get that side. So yeah. So that's what I always said. Watch how he treats his enemies. Because that's when you know how grown up he is and how
Yeah.
mature. And
That's brilliant, Sheila. I love
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Dating tip, red flag number one, things I wish I knew. Yeah, my mom didn't give me that advice.
No.
She did give me other advice, and it's funny. This is the realm I'm in. My mom's advice to us always, because she grew up in an era when they had to give up working once they got married in Ireland. That was the law at the time. So she
Okay.
actually wasn't allowed to have a job. And she just looked at all of us kids. There was 3 girls in my family. And she said, make sure you are financially independent. Never, ever, be reliant on a man for your freedom in your life. And we each have done that. And it's funny that that's the space I'm in, queen maker and all about career and money. It's like, I want your freedom because I want you to live how you want to live. You can choose whatever you want and however you want to be in relationship with anybody, but I want your freedom first. I want your power first, because then all of these things you're saying,
Mhm.
will be truth. So let's keep going through. So more energy, same.
Mhm.
So when you're on the other side of having done the work and being in your power, in your divine power, in your energetic power, in your vocal power, in your grounded power, and I speak a lot about that in my work too. You have more energy. I am buzzing with life, because when you are mired in the veil of the wounding that we don't know is there, and the shit we've suppressed, and the survival patterns of people pleasing and overachieving and all of that, our life force is sucked dry, so we're exhausted. So it's a natural effect when you flick over. And then you said you stop attracting BS. So this one's really funny because I would say exactly the same thing. So with you meant it in relationship, right? You stop attracting the red flag ding ding dings.
Yep.
It's the same. So in the work we do, I read all the time about women who, I'm in different coaching groups and all of that. And I read all the time about these women that attract clients who they look for refunds, or they show up as complete victims and aren't owning and doing their work, and then blaming the coach and going, you didn't fix me, and not doing the work themselves, not owning what they need to do. And I never get that. I never get that. I have never had that. I have only ever had the most incredible clients, women who've really all turned into friendships. I've gone, I love these women. And when your field is already Empress or Queen, and I'm somebody who my friends always laugh. And in fact, my daughter, the example I'll give you is my daughter. So Emma's 31. And she rolls her eyes when she sees something's happened. If we're out somewhere, if we're at a restaurant and something's not right, or we're anywhere and something's not quite right, I will say it. I will call it. And she's actually pretty good at doing this too. I have no issue calling it, and I'll be polite, but it's like, in no uncertain terms, you'll be told this is not okay. I would like you to fix this. This is not okay. And she's just so dignified. She's like, Mom, just down a notch, down a notch. Can we just not make a big scene? And so, like that, my field is like, don't fuck with me. Do not even think about it, because I will call you out on it. You will not get away with it for a second. I don't let that stuff sit for a single second. I will call it instantly. And so you don't attract the crap. So same people in corporate jobs, they'll have a boss that will be, or colleagues. Quite often it's peers. I actually see in the corporate world, peers poop on each other all the time, because everybody's in this competitive world. You're vying to get to the top. If I make you look bad, I look better
Yep.
world, which again, women hate. And yeah, I've just seen, women getting sabotaged over and again by that, because they're not willing to stoop to that. But when your field is clear, I've had people try that with me in the corporate world, and I've had my boss turn to me and go and actually counsel the person who's tried it, and said to them, you are making yourself look bad. What you have said about Sheila is I know her, and I know all of that to be completely untrue. I'm going to give you another chance to retract everything you just attempted.
I love that. It's like your guardian angels like turned up in human form and just been like, nah, we're not having this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So shields up and on, it will show up in every part of your life. Your words, you will stop attracting bullshit. Absolutely. You said you'll have deeper and more meaningful connections. And I go, it's the same. So I agree with you, because you'll draw in somebody who is more you're more in your power. They'll meet you there. You're more in tune with you and your divine power and what you really want and who you really are. You're just more expressed as you. You'll pull somebody in that's more at that and less wounded, because frankly, that's what all of that is. You've stripped away a lot of the wounding. So you're not showing up in wounding. You're not showing up in a crappy attachment style. You're deeply happy with your life, and they're icing on the cake. You're not expecting them to fill a gap. And the work equivalent of that is the same. I'm not sitting here going, if I get 5 clients today, that means I'm of value. It's like, I am of value as soon as I open my eyes this morning. And whether I get 5 clients today or not does not mean a damn thing, but it's icing on the cake. And then when the people come again, when you're Empress Queen, and I say this, not you and I both know, I want to say this. It's not that we think we've arrived, because I said at the start, who self-sabotages? The answer is you and me, everybody, till the last day. So we're still, there's layers to the journey of Empress and Queen, right? And so we're on a layer of it right now. I will, still be going. There's still more layers to unveil, but I pull in women that I really, really love working with, like love having these conversations, and we resonate on so many aspects of life. And the work I'm doing is what lights me up. So, and I've posted about this before. When I get the Stripe notifications, I used to think, oh God, that'd be amazing. When you get the ding, 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 thousands coming in, and I go, no, what has me gibbering to my friends is when I get the messages from women going, Sheila, you'll never guess what just happened. Or I'll get the voices, Sheila, I have to share, this happened. And it's magic and miracles because we're tapped into, that other realm. And so, like that relationship feels richer. This work feels richer. Like, it lights me up. It's why I'm not sitting in the paddock until my retirement. It's like I will, it lights me up to want, I keep on saying to everybody, I want more and more and more of this. The more women we can touch, and the more women they touch, and the more all the way out. And again, way bigger than women. It's everybody. And the last one you said was, you have a higher perspective, and you don't get, I think your words were, I don't go into a tailspin over things. It's the same, you're, like an example I'll give, it's a tiny example, but we currently have, out of our beautiful herd of horses, one of them turned up lame 2 days ago. And if I was in old world hustle and grind, life scheduled to within an inch of my life, like a military schedule, that happening would feel like an imposition, and I would be squeezing in the extra. I now need to show up to him, 4 times more often than I normally would. And I go, it's just, he is such a loving being. His foot hurts, and his foot hurt is going to hurt probably for the next week. We know it's nothing serious, but we can see it's, going to be sore for the next week. So he needs a little bit of love and care. And it means I get to see the horses more often because I'm checking on him more often. And it's this beautiful gift. That's how I see it. It's a loving exchange. I love these guys. And now I just get to see them more often. I have an excuse that I have to go there more often now. And the exchanges are so lovely. Like, he knows he's hurt, and he's a big sook. He's the biggest of all of them, but he's the one who will go at the tiniest of, ouchies. He's like, oh, I can't stand on my leg. Whereas we have horses that would have had broken leg, and they'd walk off and go, I'm fine.
Oh, take it off.
He is the sookiest of sooks, and he loves being sooked over. So he's just got these big brown melty eyes, and I'm like, we've got you. And then they all know that I'm looking out for him, and that's, the herd feels looked after. And it's that idea of, when I'm in this place that everything has a higher perspective, I am grateful when some of this shit happens. Won't be grateful for everything that happens, but I'm grateful for some of this shit, and I see it for the gift that it is. And I love that I have this life that I can still weave it in and come and do this with you and still look after him beautifully, because we're not scheduled up the wazoo. And I bet you, for you, that in relationship, when you're more in your Empress and you're not overachieving and people pleasing and suppressing emotions, and you're looking after yourself, you actually have more time to savor it and enjoy it and you.
Yeah, absolutely. Those small moments really become big moments because you are expanding within them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The simplest of things, right?
Just,
Yeah.
that just got me blushing a bit. It's the small pleasures. Oh my gosh, Sheila, I love it. I love it. When we've talked a lot about people coming in to do the work, they're feeling really tired. And to me, I'm just really called to say, if you're in that energy and you think all the stuff that we're talking about sounds fantastic for them, I don't have any energy to do that. I just want to let everybody know all you have to do is say yes. You
Mm,
just have to say yes to you
mm.
and come to us and we will help you. Like, don't feel like it's too big. It's not too big of a concept to be in this growth, to become that woman that you are being called to. Because if you're hearing this, I know you're hearing the calling, and just let the fear go and just drop it and just say yes to you. Mm.
Beautiful.
Oh, that's oh, that's it. Oh my gosh, that's almost going to make me teary. I think we're going to need to do a part two. I would love to have you back another day for another 5 hour session. But as we wrap it up there for today, Sheila, how can anyone reach out and get in touch with you if they want to work with you?
Beautiful. And look, I agree. Like, there's so much to unravel in this, isn't there?
Oh, so much.
There's so much. And look, what I would say too is I see more and more women are doing this work, and I love it. Like, yeah, it's becoming more normalized. Um, yeah,
Mm,
more and more women are doing it. And what I would add is, like, the bit that I've learned is if you're not doing the subconscious stuff as well, you're not going to have as much traction with the soul work, because that's what's holding you back. It's our own brain and it's the stuff we're carrying in, you know. Um, but yeah, more and more women are already doing it. So I love it. And I'm seeing that and are drawn to it and are, yeah, finding ways to get in touch with their wise woman or their, you know, whatever, their empress, their queen. So ways to get in touch with me. I think you'll have all of that on the potty anyway, but I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn under Sheila Langan. And the way I work, so a couple of things. So one, what I do is for everybody just to get a sense of it, rather than jump straight into a longer package, I just say book a session, because you can always use the credit for that session then if you decide in a little bit that you want to book something more. So it's not money wasted. But I love doing, even in a single session, I put my heart and my soul in it because I want you to walk out, if you never worked with me again, that you've had what we've spoken about here, that channel unblocked enough to have more life force pumping in, more guidance pumping in, and that you, and I get this all the time, and that you walk out just feeling more energy, more guided, more, the words I love are, and I know this will resonate with you too. We walk around this world and we feel like the responsible ones. We feel burdened. I feel this because this has been my journey too. Our shoulders are tight, our jaws are clenched, our stomachs are clenched, our wombs are tight. And we are burdened carrying it for us. And I did single mamahood too for years. So I really know the depth of it. And I go, when you tap into this stuff and you really unlock that, it's for me the feeling of being provided for, of being guided, of being supported, that brings you back into your womanhood. We're in a world of hyper masculinity, and it's that brings you back into your womanhood. And I think if you only ever did, and I don't want to do this as a pitch, but it doesn't have to be work with me and Sarah. It's go find whoever you resonate with. Somebody will pop up like the woman that I did my neuroscience with. You know, I found her, and within a week, a complete stranger, I dropped 5 grand, and it's the best 5 grand I've ever spent. And then I spent 2 years learning
Always
from
the
her.
best investments, right? When you're just
Oh,
like, intuition drops, we're
you
doing that.
know, yes,
They
you
are the
know,
best. Yeah.
they are. And you'll be led to your person, whoever that is, whether it's you or me or it's somebody else. You'll be led. Just look for the signs and just say, I'm open to it. So if you want to come and find me, great. That'll be all under the potty. But I just think stay open, stay open and say, who can help me? Like,
Right.
guides, show me. And what I tell people is, everyone has a dead relative that you loved. Everybody does, a grandmother, a parent, a sibling, sometimes a pet. They're just as powerful. Do not disregard your pets. Ask them, hey, help me,
Mm,
help me,
absolutely. And
show
then
me.
say yes. when
Yeah.
it appears.
Yes.
Say
Yes.
yes. 'Cause
Do the
it's great if
thing.
they show you and you're like, "Doo, doo, doo, looking the other way." You've got to say yes to it. Fantastic. Oh my
Yes.
goodness, Sheila, thank you for the most
Mm.
heartwarming, soul expanding conversation. I love how you describe things. I love how you paint the picture. It really filled my entire body with emotions and visions, like the whole way through. Like, speaking of your client burning, like, I just had the vision of it. And I think that within itself is so healing, because as you said, like, so many of us have gone down these journeys, like even these little micro drop-ins, they are clearing without us even knowing. So when we're open to being part of the conversation, we are doing the work. Like, being here listening to this is part of doing the work. So this is the power and the beauty of it. And I just got goosebumps saying that. So
I
thanks.
so agree with you.
Oh, that is the confirmation. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. To all my empresses out there, save this, go back and listen to it, and really choose yourself. They are the takeaways that I am really picking up right now. I know I'm going to go back and listen to it for our next part too, because there's so, like you said, so many layers to it, and we didn't even scratch the surface today of what these things mean. And especially for those people that are new to these concepts, I would love to go even deeper and what they truly like really feel and how we can make them true for ourselves. So come on back, everyone, and make sure you subscribe to Embody Your Empress so that you get the next session, the next part coming through, and the next episodes. And if you love this, go and leave us a review. Make sure you check out Sheila on her socials and send her some love. Thank you, everyone.